can even bring your own mic with you if you want. She's like, oh, that's a good idea.
By the 5th hearing, we're going to get this down.
No, because I don't want you to go to my business one.
Oh.
But anyway, I saw
You
everything.
want me to set that up for you then?
Yeah, it's gonna ask me what my password is. I have no idea. It changes all the time.
Okay.
Go.
I await Scott.
Yeah, you want me to set it up.
Good evening. Welcome to the zoning bylaw information session number 3. Today is Wednesday, October 2nd. I'm Heather Monroe, I'm the town administrator. For those of you who've been joining us the past couple weeks, the first 2 paragraphs are going to sound very familiar. For those who are new, welcome to watching us. We're going to do a little bit of an intro, and then we'll jump into what we're going to cover this evening, and then get right to it. In 2023, we organized the zoning bylaw steering group to guide the revision of our zoning bylaws using funds from a state earmark. With the steering group's support, we hired CMRPC, Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission, to assist this important effort. The core group consists of representatives from CMRPC, Neil Bagdis, Chair of the Planning Board, Roberta Bryan, Chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals, Cheryl Lombardi, Town Service Coordinator, and myself as Town Administrator. We've also received valuable insights from other town leaders, including Fire Chief Mike Pingatori, DPW Director Travis Tebow, Building Commissioner Dave Carl, Paxton Municipal Light Plant Manager Tara Rondu, and Economic Development Committee members Savis and Jeremy. Since early fall 2023, we have met at least once a month to tackle this project. Our primary goals are to update our bylaws to reflect current needs while making them more business-friendly and supportive of economic growth in Paxton. Tonight's session focuses on specific sections of the zoning bylaws. This is the third of 5 informational sessions, and tonight we will focus specifically on zoning bylaws related to marijuana, wireless communications, solar, and signs. Before diving into tonight's main topics, Jane from CMRPC will first address updates to questions raised during our second session to ensure we're all on the same page. Following that, we will review the various sections, gather your thoughts, and address any concerns. Your input is essential as we refine these bylaws and regulations. For those who wish to review the materials in more detail, you can find all of these documents in redline versions on our website at thetownofpaxton.net, zoning bylaw updates, top right tab. Our next steps. This is not the final version of the zoning bylaws. The planning board will hold a formal meeting on the final revised versions of the proposed changes on October 29th at 7 p.m. Once the final amended versions are approved by the planning board, they will be incorporated into town meeting warrant articles for consideration at the special town meeting on November 18th. With that, Jane?
Good evening. I'm Jane Wyrick, Land Use Manager with Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. Just to recap some of the questions that were asked last week, there was a question about where trash pickup would be for residents along common driveways, and we concluded that it would be at the intersection of the driveway and the public way. There was also a question about age restrictions and the allowance for disabled persons in senior residential development and whether that would apply to existing senior residential developments, and the question was answered during the meeting. Noting that existing senior residential developments would be considered pre-existing. There were no questions on Section 11 regarding inclusionary housing. Regarding accessory dwelling units, there was a question about whether ADUs would be prohibited from becoming short-term rentals and what constitutes a short-term rental. In Paxton, ADUs would not be permitted as short-term rentals, and short-term rentals are 30 days or less per the state definition of short-term rentals. There was another question regarding the subdivision rules and regulations. had to make one change regarding the definition, that it was changed from driveways that serve more than one lot to 2 lots. There was a question about what the methods of surety would be, and that would be like an easement and maintenance agreement, and then also making sure that the roadway is finished prior to certificate of occupancy being issued. And the final question had to do with whether this document included any information about invasive species, particularly knotweed. It is not in this document. However, one of my colleagues is currently working with Paxton on their hazard mitigation plan, and that includes a section on invasives, including the methods for eradicating it, such as starving it of sunlight, using either herbicides or mechanical removal, or bringing in goats to eat them. So watch the town website. There will be a draft ready soon, and there will be a public hearing on that. So there's more to come on that. And with that, I will hand it over to Heather for tonight's sections.
Right, our first section this evening is going to be 3.3.14, which is marijuana. The proposed amendments to section 3314 concerning marijuana aim to align local regulations with Massachusetts general laws and enhance public safety. Key updates include changing registered marijuana dispensary to medical marijuana treatment center, increasing the distance requirement for marijuana establishments from 300 to 500 feet from sensitive locations like schools and playgrounds, and requiring a review by the Paxton Municipal Light Department to assess energy needs. Additionally, the amendments address grammatical errors, improve formatting for clarity, and ensure that any odors from these facilities are confined to their premises.
So the state has updated the marijuana laws for a couple of times over the past several years. So the changes that are made to this section are reflecting those changes to the state law. As Heather mentioned, it includes changing the name of registered marijuana dispensary to medical marijuana treatment center. And so there are several locations within this section where we had to strike through the old term and insert the new, as well as the new acronym of MTC rather than RMD. As with other chapters, we've changed the numbering and lettering to make it easier to navigate the document. As Heather mentioned, any odor shall be effectively confined to the premises. And we also added the Paxton Municipal Light Department as one of the departments that will be reviewing any requests, because this use does have a high energy usage. Just a spelling correction on cannabis. We added one notation that all marijuana cultivators shall conduct a study to determine the anticipated amount of electricity use and submit an energy use plan to the Paxton Municipal Light Department to demonstrate best practices for energy conservation. And the plan shall include all electrical system overviews and proposed energy demand and the impact or potential impact on the Paxton Municipal Light Department's distribution system. This section, again, that was added also requires that any marijuana establishments or medical treatment centers adequately address any potential impacts to the lighting and electric distribution system.
All right. Are there any questions from anyone here?
I didn't notice the 300-foot to 500-foot increase. We probably went right by it, but I just didn't see it.
We might want to back up slowly or search. There it is.
Right there, under 3. It's spelled out versus, there it is. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Seeing no more questions, we have no one joining us online this evening. All right, so we're going to move on. Thanks, Jean. Our next section this evening is Section 8, Wireless Communications. The proposed changes to the communications equipment regulations aim to broaden the scope from personal wireless services to wireless communications facilities and enhance safety and oversight. Key updates include requiring all wireless facilities to comply with the Paxton Municipal Light Department's standards, relocating definitions to Section 1.3, and permitting attachments to utility poles only with the department's permission. Additionally, the amendments emphasize that all new wireless constructions must not interfere with electrical distribution lines and mandate testing for radio frequency radiation levels to ensure the safety of electric linemen working on distribution lines.
Thank you. So for this section, it is mostly for commercial wireless communications installations. So it would, most of this information is technical data that would pertain to those companies. As Heather mentioned, we propose changing the name from personal wireless services to wireless communication facilities. And so that's changed several places throughout the document. And changing the formatting with different numbering and lettering. Also, that these facilities should meet or must meet the connection requirements of Paxton Municipal Light Department. Definitions are struck through as they are being moved to Section 1.3. Uses permitted in the underlying zoning district shall be permitted within the overlay district. And these uses include residential uses such as single-family, multifamily, agricultural, municipal, recreation, and other uses identified in Section 3.2, which is the use schedule, provided that they're located outside of the required fall zone for any towers. Just terminology changes and additional information requiring permission of Paxton Municipal Light for anything attached to utility poles, and noting that any new construction of this equipment cannot interfere with the electric distribution lines. Another notation that attachment to utility poles requires permission of Paxton Municipal Light Department. Again, just changing terminology and the lettering and numbering of sections. Regarding connections, to the extent technologically feasible, all network and electrical interconnections from the facility shall be via underground lines.
Jane,
Yes.
is there any mention in here, when I read it, I didn't find it, so I'm just going to ask. If a communication company were to come in and establish a tower, a wireless tower, they get the license for that, and they put up the equipment that they need. We had a situation about 5 years ago,
A little bit more, but yeah.
okay, where residents were concerned that a single tower would be built, and then like Verizon or AT&T or Sprint, somebody else would come in and want to attach their equipment to that. Again, increasing the exposure to signals and all of that. So do we have any terminology in here that would allow for a single use versus multi-use on a tower?
Can you search the term co-location? Typically, when you have multiple carriers on one tower, it's referred to as co-location. Most communities prefer that rather than having additional towers. There it is.
Board of Appeals.
What's the beginning of this section? Can we scroll up just a few lines? like, what is subsection is this under? Facility and site design criteria. So in non-residential districts, the Board of Appeals may grant a special permit to allow a lesser setback if it makes a finding that such lesser setback provides adequate safety, promotes co-location, or improves design, and will not negatively impact the appearance and character of the neighborhood. There's 3 more. The definition for co-location was moved to section 1.3, which states the use of a single mount on the ground by more than one carrier, referred to as vertical co-location, and/or several mounts on an existing building or structure by more than one carrier. And on an existing structure, if room is available on an existing tower, the tower owner may not prohibit co-location by other carriers.
Okay, so that answers my question. However, do we have a current wireless overlay district? I
Yes.
believe it's on the top of
Yes.
Asnabumskett Hill at this point. Okay, so the question that came up years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, was a resident owned a piece of property in a residential area and was willing to lease that land to one of the communication carriers to construct a tower. So I just want to make sure that if something like that were to come forward again, that co-location would not be allowed, because according to what you just read me, it's in a residential district, so it would be one tower, one carrier.
If the underlying zoning is residential, but it would still have to be within the wireless overlay district.
Period.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we tightened up, because that was a big area of discussion.
Which I don't remember, but I do remember the hearings, and I would argue that the co-location actually is beneficial to the town because it's multiple carriers on one pole or fake tree versus citing each individual's carrier's pole throughout the town or even in that one overlay district. So I don't remember people being concerned that there were too many carriers on that one pole. I do recall there being a lot of flaws in AT&T's proposal that it was even going to provide any coverage to that area at all, that their studies just didn't seem to confirm that, and that we may not get the coverage that we wanted. In addition, I feel like the town made some decisions at the time to try to locate those types of revenue streams, on town property first, to have sort of the right of first refusal. And then I honestly can't remember if the Asnabumskett zone happened after
It was after.
that proposal failed down on
Keep Ave.
in that corner of Keep Ave, but, like, did we have a zone?
Oh, yeah. We got as probably as much as those towers have been there.
Oh, okay,
By the water.
okay. So this was a petition to cite it outside of the overlay district, okay, which could happen anywhere, yeah.
Right.
Okay, because several questions came up at the time of the hearings. And one was traffic. So if you have a single tower with a single carrier, you could limit the traffic to once a day, we'll say. But if you put 2 or 3 carriers on there, they would each have, let's just say, once a day. So you'd have 3 trips to maintain and check and this and that. And I think the big crux of this came that we didn't have the overlay district for communications at the time. I just wanted to make sure. So right now, everything's at Asnabumskett, which is fine because there are other towers up there and the likes of that. And yes, it would include a revenue stream for the town because the asset would be taxed as personal property or corporate property or whatever, generating some sort of income. So just thank you. I just wanted to
Okay, sure.
go through that. I may not
problem.
have been there the night we discussed this previously, so thank you.
Am I still scrolling down this, Jane? Or do you feel like we've covered all
I
of the
th-
changes?
I think we were finished with this one, just ready to see if there are any questions.
Okay, we do have one person online. Erica, do you have any questions? Okay. She's not unclicking, so we're going to go with no. All right, so we're going to move on to the next section. Thanks, Jane. Next up, we have Section 11, Solar. The proposed changes to the solar bylaw aim to enhance protections for residents, the Paxton Municipal Light Department, and the land while minimizing impacts on the PMLD distribution system. Key updates include relocating definitions to Section 1.3, requiring notification to the Paxton Municipal Light Department for prospective solar projects, and ensuring access for municipal light department linemen to grid-connected facilities. Additionally, the changes mandate the removal of both above-ground and underground facilities during decommissioning, with documentation confirming that the soil is not contaminated, thereby improving overall safety and compliance.
So just like the wireless communications chapter that we just went through, this one will pertain mostly to corporations who are looking to install this. It's more the technical requirements for them. As Heather mentioned, that we've added a couple of requirements regarding notification and approval by Paxton Municipal Light Department. Remove the definitions. They're in, we'll be moving those over to section 1.3 with other definitions. And some change of the formattings for different lettering and numbering. And requiring a feasibility study identifying any potential impact to the Paxton Municipal Light Department's distribution system. Also, the owner or operator shall be responsible for maintaining the solar photovoltaic installation and any access roads adequate to ensure access for emergency vehicles, and if connected to the grid, to provide access for linemen. This one just adds to the removal requirements, ensuring that both above-ground and underground utilities are removed when a site is decommissioned, as well as providing documentation that there's no contamination to the soil. And that's it. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions at home?
Are there any questions at home? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. All right, our last section for this evening is Section 12, Signs. The proposed changes include relocating the sign subsection to a new Section 12, updating references from sign officer to building commissioner, and revising illuminated sign regulations to ensure they don't adversely affect neighbors or driver visibility. Additionally, definitions will be moved to Section 1.3 for consistency, formatting will be improved for easier navigation, and minor grammatical errors will be corrected. These updates aim to clarify the approval process, enhance safety, and improve the overall readability of the document.
Okay, so under the purpose of the sign bylaw, we recommend adding that no sign shall be placed on utility poles, and Paxton Municipal Light Department may assess fines for any violations of that. We added, to clarifying, rather than just externally, we added illuminated signs. And it identifies what the maximum brightness or intensity is for those signs. The light for any sign shall be maintained at a sufficient low level of intensity and brightness that it shall not adversely affect the neighboring premises or the safe vision of operators of vehicles moving on public ways. And the colors, no sign in the town of Paxton shall contain more than 4 colors, and no sign shall contain red or green lights if such colors would, in the opinion of a Paxton Police Department, constitute a driving hazard. Again, just some formatting changes. That's it?
Okay, question?
Yes.
I understand the 4 colors for non-movable, non-movement signs. In other words, the name of a business like the bank or the supermarket or the whatever. But with the town now having 2 electronic signs that they use as electronic bulletin boards, are we still limiting to 4 colors?
That's up for discussion.
Okay, because in the past, the last couple of years, they were, at Christmas time or seasonal times, they were red and green images, we'll say, put on those signs. Merry Christmas with holly berries or something to that effect, and I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with that.
I just don't think those of us who are operating the sign were aware of the sign bylaw or the rationale behind it, so we can make that adjustment moving forward.
Okay, it just, okay, so would it be in the
Great
handbook?
point, absolutely, with the
Okay.
red and green, making sure that it's not confusing and it's not a safety issue.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple changes, but one that I was concerned about when we went through it, and it started before the town put up the electronic signs, was that the select board has the right to override or allow for electronic signs in town. It takes the control out of the hand of the current, just permit and permitting authority. So I think that should be changed. It should just sit with the permitting authority, which typically, well, we can get to that. If you search for a select board, I think, you'll find it.
I thought we took that part out, Roberta, but
Okay.
even if that was the
Yeah, it
case,
should
it
have
would be
been
crossed
struck.
out somewhere,
Yeah.
but I'm not seeing it.
Okay.
Do you remember what section it was in?
And would it be zoning or general bylaw?
No, it was in the zoning
Okay.
when
Yeah.
we read it, because it came up
Yeah.
at one of the most recent ones when we talked about it. See if I can go past it.
I think the reason the discussion came up, if memory serves me correctly, was there was a sign put in town that neither the zoning board nor the planning board knew anything of because the select board just approved it. And there were issues at times with colors on the sign, and that's why I say we're trying to tighten everything up. But I believe it should fall under zoning.
Okay.
The special permit or the application should come for, some board has to hear it
Yeah.
that deals with the regulations.
Also, is this a typo? Do we mean to say the zoning officer shall be the building commissioner under this bylaw, or do we really mean the building commissioner shall be the building commissioner?
Good catch.
Okay.
So while Heather's looking for that, my other suggested change is pretty wholesale in our sign Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
That's all right.
I think it had previously said the sign officer, and we changed that to the building commissioner, right? Or was it zoning enforcement officer?
Enforcement officer.
Yeah, I think it just, I just don't think we meant the building commissioner shall be the building commissioner. I think we meant one is really the other.
That's one I'll verify for next week.
Okay. So throughout our study of the bylaws in this process, you know, we keep talking about the character of Paxton and what we value of the character of Paxton, which I've heard, you know, multiple times, is its quaintness, its New England nature, its historic buildings. And I feel like our sign bylaw should support that, and it currently does not. So I've looked at some other communities' bylaws, and they do, in my opinion, two things really well. One, they have design standards in a design review, and I'll use committee for lack of a better term at this point, but it's an independent body that the sign design is submitted to, and they weigh in on it as it relates to the bylaws, you know, and also aesthetics. So slightly subjective, but mostly objective. And my thoughts on if we want to portray Paxton as quaint and New Englandish, we should not have illuminated signs, internally illuminated. It should be all external illumination. So for ease of description, a wooden sign with a exterior spotlight on it, indicating, you know, what the sign is, and then obviously coming off it, turning off in the day and only being on at night, and we can set hours around that. I just think it would really change how you felt when you drive through town, and I also think that it's a good, if we increase our area for businesses in the community, we're going to have a lot more signs, potentially. We'll have a lot more linear feet, an area in the town that will be subject to signs that we don't currently have now. So I would propose that we discuss changing so that everyone is obviously grandfathered in now, but if anyone needs to repair a sign, renovate a sign, it would no longer be conforming. They would have to change it to adhere to our new standards, whatever the town of us decides it should be. The town of us. That's my thought. I know it's well supported here amongst my friends.
Yeah, I agree that we would have some sort of sign review commission, committee, group, just to make sure that it's not falling on the same boards. Make the recommendation and it goes to wherever it goes. But just another group of eyes and ears listening to neighbors or abutters that may be affected by this if the zoning, the business zoning increases. So I think that's a good thing for us to have.
Sure.
You found it?
Oh, the current. Did it miss the transition? What's the subsection? So so Cheryl has in front of her, it was in 5.4.
5.3.4.1. 5.3.4.1.
Is where it was, and what does it say? This is the current bylaw as it is.
Is under movement, no sign shall contain any moving, flashing, or animated lights or visible moving or movable parts, except such portions of a sign as consist solely or indicators of time, barometric pressure, and/or temperature in automatically changing message, provided that a sign with an automatically changing message will be permitted only if the Board of Selectmen so approve in writing. Oh, that's written terribly.
So, but I don't think that made it into the
Yeah.
revised version for some reason. So Jane, if we
So-
can take another look at that section and
Sure.
make sure that
Yes,
our red line version includes the old version.
yes.
Okay, but just to follow up on that, then, that,
I think the steering
Ellen.
group's intent was to strike that section, that piece.
okay.
But we need to make sure that the rest of it's there and that it's represented, that it was previously in existence. You
Okay, no.
can't change something if it's entirely different.
Understood, but I guess what I'm saying is I want to make sure that the purview for this review or this process does not fall ultimately with the select board. They can, at the end, after everything's been checked and rechecked and approved and whatever, then it can be submitted to the select board, say, yeah, we like that, let's go ahead and do it. But at this point, we've just circumvented the entire system of review.
We'll have to go back and look at the notes, but I know we came up with something in lieu of that. I just don't remember what it was.
Yeah, I don't remember that we came up with anything in lieu of it. I just remember maybe we just struck that the select board could sort of override, that particular section. So I think we had to take it in two pieces, like, one, are we allowing any if we're going to stay with our current sign bylaw, are we allowing any movement but for what Cheryl, noted was exceptions, and then
Yeah.
just end it? So it stays with whatever permitting authority is typical even for the old bylaws.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm looking that up. Any other questions in person, from anyone in person? Okay. Is there anyone online who has any questions about this section or any of the other sections this evening? All right. All right, with that, we'll conclude this evening's information session. Our next information section, or session rather, is on sections 2 as well, which is establishment of districts and our zoning maps, and that is scheduled for next Wednesday at 7 p.m., October 9th. And then our last session will be the following week on October 16th, and that will be the MBTA proposed zoning bylaw. Again, all of our information is on the website. We will update the website in the next few days with clips from tonight's meeting, or more specific, the timestamps for it, as well as any other additional information that we have. All right, thank you, everyone.